This is my first time on campus. Please don't take that against me. طيب. Very, very happy to be here, inshallah. And there's lots to be discussed. The good news is hopefully this is going to be fun for you guys. I know it's going to be fun for me, so hopefully it'll be for you. The bad news is we're probably not going to cover everything. As I was going through planning for this session, there's a lot of material. Probably will take us 4 hours to go through everything, and I don't have 4 hours, and you guys don't have 4 hours. So we'll do our best. I'd like to try to go through this as best as we can. But certainly, I'm happy to do more of these in the future if required, or to stick around and answer any questions on things that we may have flown right through. As Akhuna Mustafa said, my name is Khaled Sultan, and I do lecture on this topic quite often. It's one of the topics that I feel very close to, and I feel it's very important. I know the title is very fluffy, the best year ever. What does that mean? Inshallah, we're going to drill down and talk about a lot more detail. And my intent is for you to maybe capture 1 or 2 or 3 ideas that you can take away, and then hopefully start executing and implementing in your life. And that's what makes this really effective. We're not here to come and listen to a talk that kind of gives us a high, and then tomorrow or next week or next month we get back to doing what we've always been doing. That is an ineffective talk. A lecture or a session or a class or any event, personal development event that you do should hopefully give you a little bit of a boost and change autocorrect in your life to make things that much better in your life, inshallah. So hopefully that is the intention. So what we're going to do now is begin by a quiz. A quick quiz. And the quiz is, what is that? So take a second and tell me what is this that you see. What's that?
A grave.
A grave? No, it's not a grave. Construction? No, it's not construction.
The board is connected. Mic is connected.
Is it required?
Directly recording in the video.
Maybe.
It's not a speaker mic.
Let's keep guessing.
It's a direct connected mic.
Okay, guys. Drawing. Come on.
Archaeology site.
Archaeology site. Keep going. Nothing correct so far. Some are close. Some are close.
Are we standing on a height or looking down?
You're looking down. This is a picture that I actually took this way on the top of the table, and it was not in Canada.
Train track?
Train track. No, close. Not close at all. What else? Fossil. Okay. Really close. No geologists in the room. So this picture was taken in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and what you're looking at right now is gold. Gold. You were gonna guess that, right? You should have said
What?
that.
Gold?
Exactly.
Gold?
You should have said that, because nobody, every time I put this up, nobody gets it. And why do I put this up? This is actually, a geologist would look at this and start drooling, because it's very expensive gold. But you think, you would think that gold comes out of the ground quite different. Shiny and kind of nuggety, but this is actually gold, and you can tell that through the deposits within the rock sediments. This is a core, an ore sample. Basically, what the drill does is drills deep down and collects a sample, and those are the samples they test to determine how much gold concentration is in here, and if it's enough, then they go and start drilling it out. So why do I put this up? I put this up to give you an idea that sometimes the brain has preconceived notions that tell you, oh, this is what I think gold looks like out of the ground, but in reality it looks something completely different. This is a handicap, and also the way our brains work, there's so much data around us that our brains naturally filter things out to be able to make use of the data that it achieves or it retrieves. So keep that in the back of your mind. As you're exposed to new concepts, perhaps they're not as you thought they were in the past. I always start this, and Shahab, I think, is here, and she would probably attest to this, saying that, yes, I've seen this slide before, and I always put this slide up because it's a reminder for me, first and foremost. And that reminder is to ask ourselves, why are we here? And I could ask you guys the question, and I'm going to make it rhetorical just because of the time limitation that we have. Why are you here? Try to take a second and ask yourself, why am I here? It's a Friday night, November 9th. You could be 1,000 other places. You could have gone home, or you could have been with your family, or with your friends, or just chilling at home, relaxing after a long week of hard work that you chose to be here. Why? Don't answer, but why? Think about why. And maybe somebody invited us, maybe there's pizza at the end and you wanted to come and grab free pizza, that's cool too. But perhaps there is another reason why we're here. And my attempt or my hope is that you guys take a quick second right now without doing anything in your seat and recalibrate that intention. And the intention of why we're here is one thing. We're here to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're here, yes, on a Friday night in the student center on room 2012, sitting in chairs, listening to some guy that you've never heard about before, but it is to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you make that intention correctly, you know, the next hour we have together, you will, inshallah, get as much reward, similar reward, as if you have the Mus'haf open and you were reading the Mus'haf for the entire hour. Wow, that's a bold comment. I would help you make that. Because it really all comes down to your intention. Are you here to learn something and potentially change your life to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If the answer is yes, and you can make that intention right now, even if you came for the pizza, you can change that intention right now, then this is a review of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're actually trying to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through your time here. And that's why I start this every time, because it's for me. So I'm hoping that I'm here to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because like you, I could be somewhere else right now. So let's make that intention. So this is part of a life skills series. And this is the first installment in a very, very long set of talks and workshops and discussions. And it really is centered around the word, those words here, optimize. You guys can hear in the back? I can yell. Try to yell, but I don't do a good job usually. So if you can't hear me in the back, please wave once in a while, and I'll try to increase my voice. So optimize. It's all about optimization. And what does this word mean, optimize? It actually comes from the root word optimus in Latin. And optimus basically means the best. So when we're talking about optimization, we're talking about how can I become the best person I can become. I know what the best version, or perhaps I can intellectually understand or theorize what the best version of me would be. And the question is, am I at my best version or not? There's a way I could be speaking to you right now. There's a million ways I could be speaking to you right now. There's a way that you could be in your chair sitting and listening. There's a way you could be a student, or a way you could be an employee or an employer. And how good is that role that you're playing? Are you at that best? And if the answer is no, then there's room for improvement. These life skills series is hopefully trying to get all of us to get to the best version of ourselves. So think about it. You at your absolute best. Again, don't answer. What do you look like if you're the best version of yourself? If that version eats right every day. If it does what it needs to do. If it does its prayers on time. if it only really interacts with people that you know you should be interacting with and not interacting with people that you should not be interacting with. That version of yourself, how does that look like for you? Because you know what? Raghad's best version of herself is very different than my best version of myself. And it doesn't matter because I'm not comparing myself to her or to you or to anybody else. I'm only comparing myself to me and the best version of me. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And we'll inshallah circle back and show you how that is the case. And I believe, humbly, that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's role was to come and bring about the best version of everybody around. And we could see that in example after example after example, where people used to bury their own daughters alive in the sand. I've just been blessed with a baby daughter, Aline, and I can't even intellectually think or understand how that can happen by the father. I'm not talking to some evil person who wants to kill kids or crazy people. The father burying his own daughter in the ground, I can't even think about it. I really can't think how a human being can drive himself to do that. But Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam interacted with people like that. And not only did he interact with them like that, he changed them. So we know after Islam how they became, and before Islam how they were. Well, they're the same person. What's the difference? The difference is he allowed them to reach that potential, that fullest potential of themselves. So it's this series is done in 5 batches. This is and 15 sessions in total. This is the first session of the first batch. I'll very, very quickly talk to you about it. The first batch is the big picture, where we talk about the greatest year ever. How do you make next year the best year of your life? Then that translates into purpose. What is my purpose? If I want to make it the best year of my life, okay, it's centered around what I'm here to do. So what am I here to do? What is my purpose? What is your purpose? And then moves on to goals. How do I set up a goal to actually achieve that purpose, the grandiose purpose that we all want to get to? And then we move from big picture to productivity, masterpiece days, productivity 101 and habits 101. The third session is about mental toughness, because it's really hard work doing this. How do I build my confidence? How do I enact this anti-fragility skill set that I can adopt? And how do I achieve peak performance? After that, we talk about energy. Energy consists of 3 sessions. Eat, move, sleep. Those are your fundamentals. How do you ensure that you've got the energy to do all the hard work that you need to do? And lastly, talk about happiness. How do I conquer depression? If I want to be happy, I need to understand what is depression, and do I have that, or do I have elements of that? And how do I conquer that? Things like anxiety. Am I in a state of constant anxiety? And it's not the clinical type of anxiety that makes you dysfunctional. You can be fully functional and still constantly anxious and not happy. And lastly, perfectionism. This is something as a recovering or still struggling perfectionist, this is very difficult to deal with. But inshallah, if we have time together, we'll cover that in due time. So as you can tell, this may take us a year. If we ever actually do anything again, maybe you guys are going to hate this and never bring me back, and that's fine, that's Khaled. At least give me a pizza on the way out. But you can tell I haven't had dinner, because pizza came out 6 times already. But if we do cover some of this stuff, inshallah, it'd be my honor to talk to you about it. Play. I wanted to play, I don't know if there's audio. Do I just plug this in?
No, it's connected to audio as well.
Oh, it is? Okay. So let's hope this works. We didn't test it. But you know what? These Fanshawe guys are super amazing. So I think it's going to work. So the question is why? The why. Why would we do all of this? Why wouldn't we just kind of take it easy and relax and go chill out after a hard week of working? Because there's a consequence for us not living the best version of ourselves. And let's watch. So this to me tells me why we do this. Because if I'm not the best version of myself, and you may say, how do you make the connection? If you've watched these pictures and kind of seen the little write-ups, you'd realize that these are just pictures from events that happened in the last 10 years or so. And I've barely touched some of the problems that happen around the world. Barely touched them. And not the current ones too. And you may say, how am I responsible for that? I'm responsible for that because I'm not doing what I need to be doing. Perhaps, if I am behaving in the best way possible, and you, and everybody in this room, injustice like this would not happen, or at least would happen less often. So the more I can empower myself to become the best version of myself, hopefully some of this will not happen moving forward. We know that evil and goodness, that triumph of one over the other will never be solved until the day of judgment. But I know that I'm responsible for myself. And what am I doing? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask me. He's going to ask me about Syria? Absolutely, he's going to ask me about Syria. Why wouldn't he? Because Syrians are human beings, and they're dying right now. And the question is, what did I do about it? Obviously, I can't make the situation directly better, but maybe I could do something a little bit to alleviate it. Did I do that or not? وَكُلُّهُمْ آتِيهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says everybody will stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by themselves. And you know what that interaction is going to be? It's going to be very scary. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to say, okay, He doesn't ask, what have you done with your life? General question. He doesn't ask it this way. He says, November 9th, 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, that 1 hour, what did you do? And you're like, I got up, showered, ate, went to school, okay. 9 to 10, what did you do? 10 to 11, what did you do? 11 to 12, what did you do? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that no small thing or big thing except He has took record of it. So He can ask us about it. So those who have the proper intention and do what they can will pass that test. And those who say, well, I don't know, I just kind of went to school and kind of got married and got a job and a car and a house and a few kids and then died and here I am. Maybe that's not the best answer. Allah ta'ala. So let's talk about overview of greatest year ever and jump right in. We're going to talk about 9 points. Hopefully you're going to be able to take some of those away, or some points of them away. Self-mastery, and this idea of permanent beta mode, the fundamentals. We're going to talk about what those fundamentals mean and how do they mean to you. Masterpiece days, how do you create this masterpiece day, this perfect day? And then your one thing, the wildly important goal, the dominoes, and what needs to get done now, and then making progress, this whole concept of moving forward towards a goal. And lastly, MOVE, one of my favorite acronyms, we'll describe it later on, kryptonite control, and then the experimentation mindset. So I know there's a lot there, but I did give you the warning for people who just came in. This is like 4 hours of content, but we're going to distill it in 35 minutes, so bear with me. So, self-mastery. And what's this word? Has anybody heard eudaimonia before? Can I see a show of hands? Eudaimonia? Anybody heard that before? Nobody? Okay. One person, yes. So you've heard me speak before. Yes. What is eudaimonia? Do you remember? Okay. So eudaimonia is a word that comes to us from the Greeks. And basically they're saying, well, everybody ultimately at the end of the day is trying to accomplish something. What do we all want at the end of it? All of us, we have in common. Some people want to be engineers, some people want to be doctors, some people want to be parents, some people want to play Xbox all day, that's fine, no problem. But what does all of that have in common? What would we distill that to? What do we all want to be? We want to be happy. Thank you, your name? Fatima. So Fatima said, we want to be happy. And if you think about it, yeah, most of us kind of do want to be happy, but perhaps happiness is not the right word, because happiness is a state of being, and sometimes it's fleeting. Sometimes we're in a state of happiness, and then we get in a car accident, we're not so happy at that moment in time. Can you truly be happy every second of every minute of every hour of every day? Realistically, no, you can't. And even Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best of examples, our prophet, would say he wasn't happy. He buried every child he had except one. But it's not happiness. What the Greeks have told us is flourishing. And what is flourishing? Flourishing is a better way of understanding it. Flourishing is trying, again, to get to the best that is for you. And sometimes if you have to bury your own child, that could be a test. And maybe the whole test is how you're going to react in that instance. Are you going to turn away from your Creator and say, why me? And this is not fair? Or are you going to see the big picture and realize that it's all part of that test that's placed upon you? So the Greeks told us it's eudaimonia, which is flourishing. And flourishing is not happiness. How do you get to flourish? How do you get to flourish? It's by basically taking the next step towards that highest version of yourself. Again, I encourage you to think about who would you be if you were the best version of you. If Fatima was the best version of Fatima, how does she look like? What does she eat? How does she dress? Who does she hang around with? What is she doing at school? Who does she marry? How many kids does she have? How do her kids look like? There is a best Fatima out there that nobody will know here but Fatima. And she knows if that's Fatima right here, and the current Fatima is behaving here, then there's a lot of room for anxiety and depression and upsetness and lack of happiness, because we know we could have behaved better, but we didn't. So they use the word of how do you get to happiness, they use the word arate. Arate is Greek, which means a virtue or excellence, basically doing the best that you could do moment to moment to moment to moment. That's what the word arate means. Can somebody tell me what word do we use from our own tradition that means arate? When we do the best thing that you could in that moment, what is that word called? Actually, I don't want you to answer because you know. Yes. Ihsan. Ihsan. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us, Ihsan is arate. He didn't say that. He said Ihsan is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and worship not in the sense of salah, siyam, qiyam only. This is considered worship. Remember how we started. If we do this with the right intention, this could be considered worship. And basically, ihsan is, as Ali was going to say, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you see Him. That's basically what ihsan is. Because if you don't see Him, He sees you. And this is by the words of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if we get to practice ihsan moment to moment to moment, we reach the best version of ourselves. Everything else for the next half an hour is discourse. It's very hard to do, but at least now we know what we need to do. And being in permanent beta, I love this idea, is, you know, Google, Gmail, most of us, a lot of us use Gmail. For the longest time, I think for 6 or 8 years, Gmail was in permanent beta mode. Say Gmail and then beta. Why? Because they said, although millions of people were using it, but they felt that there's always ways to improve. Crush some bugs, improve the performance, improve the usability. And we should be like that. That I'm never eventually get somewhere. There's always a way for me to get better. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. So I translate it, He who created death and life to test you, or to test which of you is blank indeed. What is the blank? أحسن عملا. Best, sorry, best. Somebody said better, somebody said good, somebody said better. So usually people translate that as best. Who of you is best indeed? Wrong translation. Forgive me. Wrong translation. Allah didn't say al-ahsan. If you're of the Arabic tongue, you'd know that al means the, and ahsan means better. The, al-ahsan means the best. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ahsanu amala. He could have said al-ahsan. Ahsan is better. You know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us? He wants us to become a little bit better. All He wants you to do. If you can just become a little bit better, you're winning that fight of me against the world. Can I just get a little bit better? And by the way, the shaitan, Satan, comes to you and says, oh, you can't be the best. Look at you. You backbite people. You look at things you shouldn't be looking at. You cut people off when you're driving. Maybe you smoke or you hit the club once in a while. You can't be really a good Muslim ever because you're not perfect. So if you're not perfect, then might as well give up all this fight and all this deed. That's the shaitan's way of coming to you and saying, give up that fight. But Allah didn't want you to be the best. He wanted you to be a bit better. If you go clubbing 4 times a week, can you make it 3 times a week? Khaled's telling us to go clubbing 3 times a week. No, he's saying, can you reduce the amount of negativity in your life? And if you've reduced it to nothing, that's great. Can you improve just a little bit better? If you pray once a day, we know we need to pray 5, but if you pray only once, because that's your capability, can you make it twice? Just twice. And don't pick Fajr. Fajr is difficult. Can you make it Dhuhr and Asr? Or Asr and Maghrib? And if you can do that and stabilize that, great. Can you add 1 more? And if you add that 3rd Salah, can you add the 4th and add the 5th? This is how things happen. But if you want to wave of a wand and move from never been clubbing all my life and not praying once to all of a sudden being enlightened and being with the Buddhas, that's not going to happen, unfortunately. So how? It comes through practice. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, al-ilmu bil-ta'allum wal-hilmu bil-tahallum, which means you gain knowledge by studying and you change yourself to be a patient and at ease by practicing being patient and at ease. And I love the metaphor of amateurs, pros, and the best. So basically, right now, maybe I'll share something that I'm currently doing. I'm trying to qualify as a lifeguard. I'm 42 years of age, and it's a really wrong age to qualify as a lifeguard because being a lifeguard is very physically demanding. I don't know if you've known, I didn't know when I signed up to this, but I did sign up to it, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. But that's what I'm trying to do, to become a certified lifeguard. In a different talk, maybe we'll tell you why. But that's what is important to me. Now, as a swimmer, I could be an amateur, I could be the best, or I could be a pro, or I could be the best. Let me give you an example of what I mean. So in the lifeguard course, they make you do various rescues. So one rescue that's giving me trouble is a mannequin that is filled with water. It basically weighs about 180 pounds and is submerged. You have to swim to it, pick it up and bring it back and rescue this mannequin by kicking all the way back 25 meters. And this whole exercise needs to happen in 90 seconds. That's the drill. So I've been practicing that, failing miserably, but been practicing that. So what does an amateur do? An amateur does practice until they can get it right. And then they're, alhamdulillah, I'm done. Good, I got it right. I practiced and I got it within the time limit. A pro doesn't do that. A pro practices until they can't get it wrong. That's the difference. The amateur practices up until the point they get it right and then they stop. Whereas the pro keeps practicing until there's no way they can get it wrong. Now, you could choose to be an amateur, or you could choose to be a pro, or you could choose to be the best. The best in rescuing mannequins out of the water. If that's your goal, awesome, kudos to you. But what is it that you want? Do you want to be an amateur? Do you want to be a pro? Or do you want to be the best in that field, in that task. It's up to you. Let me give you an example, again, quick video. What is this? Rubik's Cube. Who here have attempted to solve a Rubik's Cube before? I want to see a show of hands. No, come on, guys. Like, really? Okay. And how many? Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. If you've attempted to solve this and actually was successful, keep your hand up. If you haven't, put your hand down. So only 4 or 5 people. Okay. And for those who have their hands up and put it down, can you just tell me, throw at me, a number of how many minutes did it take you to solve it? Your best time.
130.
1:30.
1 minute 30 seconds.
Wow, my hat off to you. What's your name, sir?
Muhammad Rishad.
Muhammad Rashad. My hat off to you. 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Yes.
Awesome. Yourself.
It took almost 1 day.
1 day. You know what? 1 day is an amazing time. It's just you killed us with your 1 minute and 30 seconds. You gave a lot of practice. What about yourself, sir?
1 minute and 5 seconds.
Wow. Woo. This is amazing. You're not making this up, right?
No.
Wow, that's impressive.
What sort of brown one was it?
Yeah, I need one now.
Yeah, exactly. The 2 sisters who had their hand up. What's your time? You don't want to share. Come on, share. So for me, it took me, I think, 3 days. So I'm like in your camp.
Okay.
So most people, it would take them a couple of hours, let's say 2-3 hours. Noor, my daughter, I'm getting her one because she's into this now and competing and so on and so forth. But if she can do it within a couple of hours, I'd be impressed. So let's see one of the world records. This is not that final world record, but this is one of them. This is out of a gentleman in France, Jean Pons. Let's see what how long it takes him to do it, and whether he beats your minute in 5 seconds or not. Oops, sorry.
5 seconds.
So he studies it, but he puts it down, then they try. That in the beginning, 11 seconds, 0.75, many of you would not have believed me. But that you saw it live. This is not doctored. Now this is not the world record. It's actually been found. So let's watch this. 5.253. So basically less than 6 seconds. That's the world record. And you may look at that and say, unbelievable, this is amazing. This guy is from a different planet that came down and was able to do that. I show you this for a reason. Because I'm about to show you another video of the same person a few years earlier.
This is Khaled nearly 5 years ago. World records are not built in a day.
And that was pretty fast too. But that was in 5 seconds. That was 35 seconds. You know what he did all his life? Solve Rubik's Cubes. You may look at that and say, that's weird. Why would you take that as a goal? It doesn't matter. It does not matter what the goal is. But the whole point here is he made that his goal and he went after it day in and day out. You know, when we went to the movies and we went and had pizza and we went out for ice cream, he was sitting there practicing how to solve it. And that's why he became so good at what he does, because he chose to put in the time. I wish making 2019 the best year of your life is so easy. I tell you, just take this pill or just say this dua and then everything is solved. It doesn't happen this way. Because if it does, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have had it happen to him. He was the best of Allah's creator. He was creation. He was the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You study his life, it's just pain after pain after pain after pain. And pain that we've been protected from. Yet he was the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's about the effort. It's about ahsanu amala. Can you get better? And can you get better for the right reason? And the right reason is to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's talk about the fundamentals. So self-mastery is the first point. Is how do I master myself and become the best I can? The second is, how do I do that? Well, to change myself, I need to focus on fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? Or what are the things that I need to do, the boring things that I need to do day in and day out, that if compounded and aggregated would cause that change to happen? And look, think about buildings. Anybody here in a civil engineering program or structural program? No? You guys are students, right? Because I haven't picked anything that you guys do so far. So maybe you're all computer scientists or something. So if you're walking by a building and it's not built yet, it's not erect, you want to know how tall the building will be? Look at the foundation. Look at the foundation, you'll know how tall it will be. If you're building a one-story house, the foundation is going to be 8 feet. I think that's the regulation in London, Ontario. 8 feet is enough foundation. If you're building a skyscraper, 8 feet will not do it. You have to drill down many stories in the ground to ensure that it will support that weight. So again, for us, how is my eating, moving, and sleeping? Those are everybody's fundamentals. You will not be able to change the world if you cannot change yourself. If you can't change yourself if you're not eating correctly. And we know what that means. Everybody knows when they're eating right and when they're eating wrong. If you're not sleeping correctly, if you're not sleeping enough, or if you're sleeping way too much, both of those are problematic. And if you're not exercising, exercising, who has time for that? Well, if you don't have time for exercise, then how are you going to change the world? It's not the other way around. It's these fundamentals are what allow you to do what you need to do. And we've all been in planes before. What happens when they tell us, hopefully you didn't experience this happening, but when the air supply mask comes down and you're traveling with a child, are you supposed to put it on the child first or on you first?
On yourself.
On you first. Why? Oh, that's not fair. That's so selfish. It's not selfish. Because guess what? If in the process of you putting it on your child, you pass out, the child is dead, then you're dead. But if you do it the other way around and you take care of yourself, you'll be able potentially to take care of others. That's the whole idea behind fundamentals. I'm going to skip the unique fundamentals versus yours specifically just because of time. But I will give you a bit of statistics. Your brain weighs 3% of your body. Just 3%. How much energy does it consume? Anywhere between 20 and 30% of your energy. All your intake goes to your brain. 20 to 30% of your intake goes to your brain. So if you're feeding yourself garbage, guess what? The brain is being fed by. Yes, I know there's a process by which the nutrients are extracted and so on and so forth. But if you're eating empty calories and sugar, that's what you're feeding your body and your brain with. And it's not a good recipe. That's why you never really see good athletes, like world elite athletes, smoking. Have you ever seen that? That's crazy. Because their whole goal is how do I sculpt my body to be able to do that thing that I need to be doing, whether it's solving a Rubik's Cube or swimming or playing ping pong or playing soccer or football. That's their goal. They're not going to ruin that by eating potato chips for dinner and smoking and drinking alcohol, because they know what will kill your body and what will make it better. When you exercise, Ritalin and Prozac, I was going to ask who here is in pharmacy, but I'm going to stop asking because nobody's going to put up their hand. But these two drugs, they've actually done tests that recognize that Ritalin actually helps you focus and Prozac makes you feel happy. These are medications that you can go and get. Exercise does exactly the same thing. How do they do these tests? They do these tests in groups, in a control group, and so on and so forth, and they make them do random tests and see how they score. And they realize that actually just exercising can give you a lot of the benefits that many of us are going to our physicians to hopefully solve with a pill. But they don't come with consequences. You know, if you take a medication, it comes with consequences. That's why they say, here's the dose, don't take more of that dose, because if you do, it's going to have a negative effect on you. Masterpiece days. Yeah. No, let's cover it. Let's cover it. And I will probably end with this, just because I want to stick to the 7 o'clock time. I may do one more thing, but Masterpiece Days is, if I develop mastery, remember, what did we cover? We covered 2 topics already. How do I become the best version of myself and master myself? And the second step of the how is focusing on my fundamentals: eating, moving, and sleeping. The third item is, how do I make each day, or at least some of my days, masterpiece? Perfect days. My day is perfect from start to finish. That's the goal. I may not get to it, but that's the goal. That's the intent. John Wooden. Who knows John Wooden? Okay, one person. Two people. Do you want to tell us who John Wooden is?
So he is an inspirational coach for a basketball team.
Right. He is arguably the best basketball coach ever lived. And when I'm not going to go through the stats, but he was able to bring teams that are useless and make them win championship after championship after championship. And it wasn't the people themselves, because as they graduate, he'd get new students and he'd make them win again. So they realized he's got a secret sauce. And when they asked him, well, what is the secret sauce? He basically went back to the same point that we just covered, the fundamentals. You know what he trains his basketball players on? He spends the first week of their draft, after they're drafted. What do they spend their time on? What do you think? Shooting hoops, or let's say inspirational speeches, or what have you? None of that. You know what he focuses on? Helps them how to put their socks on. And they say, what? Socks on? Yes. He spends meticulous time just teaching them how do you put your socks on in a way that is perfect, so it doesn't cause blisters when you put it on wrong. If you put it on wrong, it's all clumpy and you're playing all day. After 8 hours, your feet are full of blisters. And if your feet are full of blisters, you're not going to play. And if you play, you're going to play poorly. And if you play poorly, you're not going to win. So he tied winning down to a simple thing of how do you roll the socks on perfectly, very tightly, and in a way that doesn't cause any issues for your feet. That's what he did, because he focused on the fundamentals. And if you focus on the specific pieces of your day and make them perfect, your day becomes perfect. If your day becomes perfect, your year becomes perfect. If you will never have a really good year if you can't have a really good day. So what would your day be like if it's perfect? If you had a magic wand and you could say, okay, here's my perfect day, what would it be? Do you know? If you don't know, you should ask. You should ask yourself. Maybe would I call my mom? Would it involve calling my parents and checking up on them? Would it involve waking up early or late? Would it involve praying all my prayers? Would it involve holding the door to people even though I'm late? Would it involve always telling the truth? What would it involve? You design it the way you design it, but design that perfect day. When would you wake up? Would you wake up at 6 o'clock or at 9 o'clock? Up to you. It doesn't matter. But what is that masterpiece day look to you? And actually, what you realize that it starts the night before. A perfect day starts the night before, not on the day itself. Because if, to me, for example, I love to get up early. And if I sleep at midnight, I'm not going to get up at 5. If I sleep at 10, I could get up at 5 or earlier. So I know when I stay late, doing whatever I'm doing, doesn't matter, it's going to compromise my next day because I'm not going to be able to get up early. And if I don't get up early, I don't do what I want to do before my kids get up and my family needs me and work needs me and the whole day starts and you know how crazy it is. So is it important enough to you to turn off that TV or that show that you're watching or the Netflix or the YouTube or the Facebook and go to bed so you protect that next day? It's up to you. You make that decision. But typically it starts with the decision the night before. What a lot of the researchers tell us is AM and PM bookends. We mostly have a lot of control in terms of our morning and our night because people are not usually around. During the day, good luck. Phone calls are ringing and people are asking us for stuff and our family needs us and courses and classes and so on and so forth. It's really hard to have a good control. Not everybody has good control over every minute of every day, but at least your AM and your PM bookends, you can control those. What do you do when you get up in the morning? You pull up a phone and look at it. You perhaps answer email. You look at Facebook messages. Do you read the news? Again, it's up to you. But if you're creating a masterpiece day in the pursuit of a masterpiece year, checking email is probably not the best thing you should be doing first thing in the morning. Because checking email is doing what? You're responding to other people's priority. Hey, I email Fatima, I need this from you. Can you send me this? And somebody else emails me, can you meet me at this time? And can you help me this? And I need to move. And can you rent a car for me? And can you come and do X, Y, Z for me? Typically, email is not my priorities. It's other people's priorities. So I get up first thing in the morning and I just crank out other people's priorities. That's cool, okay. But how does that help me get to the best version of myself? And if I can't be the best version of myself, can I really help anybody else? I would argue not. Put systems and rituals in place to achieve this. Making waves is a very important concept. We know that we can't constantly be on. Even Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us this, that sometimes you need to the typical saying is sa'a lak wa sa'a li rabbik, which is not what he said. It's an hour for you and an hour for your Lord. That's not what he said. What he was trying to tell us is sa'a fa sa'a, i.e. push hard and relax. Push hard and relax. And now what scientists tell us, we go through a circadian rhythm where we're on and we're not so on. We're on, we're not so on. That's why you're not supposed to sit there and read the Quran, for that matter, for 6 hours nonstop. Because you become less and less effective. Go on and take a break. Go on and take a break. And when I say go on, whether it's studying or working or helping or doing whatever you need to do, and perhaps do that for an hour, doing that for an hour to 90 days, to 90 minutes, and then taking a break. Taking a break for 10 minutes perhaps. And a break does not mean check your Facebook. It's not a break. That actually makes you even more hyped up. A break is maybe just doing nothing, or chilling, talking to your family, or listening to something, or maybe just going for a walk. That's what a break is. Checking Facebook, checking email, Instagram, not a break at all. And when you start practicing these, you may not have a masterpiece day all the time. It's a really tough standard to hit. But you know what happens as you pursue that masterpiece day goal? You may have it once a month. But you're going to have great days more often than not. Maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 times a month. A great day, not a masterpiece day. But what's beautiful is you never really have disastrous days. You get up late. You hate yourself. You eat chocolate for breakfast because you hate yourself. That doesn't make you feel great. So you hate yourself even more. And then you're late to class. And then your teacher yells at you. And then you don't want to talk to anybody. So you skip the rest of the day and you go home and you just watch Netflix all day because you hope that's going to make you feel better. It's a spiral down completely. If you pursue a masterpiece day, you rarely have those days. We all have had them. That's normal. You're human. That's fine, it happens. But you're trying to minimize those days by having a pursuit of a higher calling, which is that. I won't call it perfect, but a better day than when you took it. I'm going to skip the one thing. I want to talk about dominoes and then failure, and we'll probably end with that. Dominoes is, I love this concept. It's basically what needs to get done next. So another thing that I'm doing, I could use the swimming example. Actually, I will use the swimming example. It is very relevant. My course is tomorrow. It's on the weekend, last weekend, this weekend. So basically, when you're trying to pursue something, I'm trying to cast to be certified as a lifeguard. That's a huge, humongous goal. That's the one thing. For me, 2018, inshallah, Allah will be the year that I pursued that goal. And hopefully I accomplished it. But when you look at that, that needs to be broken down into many, 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 many different goals. Because if I get up in the morning and say, am I a lifeguard yet? No, I feel bad. I'm depressed. Next day, am I a lifeguard yet? No, I feel depressed. That's not how we work. That's not how we move forward. How we move forward is, what do I need to do next to allow me that if I eventually do all these 15,000 other things, I'm going to eventually become a lifeguard. And yesterday, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, for me, the number one thing was at 8 o'clock at night to be in the pool and rescue the mannequin 3 times. That was my number one thing. 3 times. And you may say, how does that help? Don't worry, I've got a schedule as to how that would help. But to me, that was my next domino. So from the morning, I was laser focused on rescuing Baba, I call him Baba, 3 times in the pool from between 8 and 8:30. Nothing was on my mind more important than that. And you may say, Khaled, really? Like, everything that's happening around you and you're focused on this orange mannequin? Yes, because for me that's very, very important. And if I rescue that mannequin, guess what? The rest of my day is going to go quite well. Because I did what needs to get done whether I feel like it or not. And believe me, I did not feel like doing it. At all. At all. I had 50,000 different excuses why I shouldn't have done it. And my wife had a program, and the kids needed to go to sleep, and their bedtime is at 8 o'clock, and. But you know what? I did it. And I was very proud of myself, because I did it. And you may look at that and say, that's dumb. That's fine. I respect that. But to me, that's everything. So the whole point about domino